Where have you been?
I've had to delegate all of my Ink and Jordy time to the second part of your origin story.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, I suppose there's a lot to cover there.
Yeah, you can say that again. Thank you, Jordy.
Thank you, Jordy. If you haven't already, please go ahead and watch the first part of my origin story before you proceed any further with this video. Otherwise you're going to feel a little bit left in the dark.
We've got a lot of ground to cover, so let's get started.
Alright, well guys, sit back and settle in as we continue our space adventure. Get a haircut.
You get a haircut.
Although my sickness receded, guilt and panic was all too eager to take its place. The injustices we had committed in the name of the Phantom's corrupt and faceless organisation were haunting me. I was prone to defiance, therefore a danger to my platoon brothers.
Insubordination, even in the case of a sole offender, will be met with the eradication of all platoon members.
Unwilling to arouse suspicion, I feigned ignorance to their concern. Little did I know then that a psychic bond between us had been permanently severed. As much as I loathed what we had done, I wanted nothing more than to return to normal, and spent the sparse times of seclusion I had studying our species for some kind of factory reset. Only, there was little to learn about Voromir which I didn't already know. Everything else was regulated by the Phantom. I feared being exposed, being responsible for the platoon's eradication. But at our next assembly, my creator would unknowingly offer us, a chance at salvation.
2ICB Platoon, I'd like to personally congratulate you all on your continued success towards the cause. In light of your victories, and upon the delivery of a further 3 payloads, the board has deemed 2ICB suitable for the default restoration process.
I remember a tense pause from the Phantom when Aniquus inquired further.
We've had issues with dissidency among platoons with lifespans as long as yours. These resets are for quality control. Think of them as nothing more than a cleanse of the mind and body.
A cleanse of the mind and body. If I was to rid myself of the libertine qualities haunting me, I knew I had to subject myself to the restoration process.
And I guess that meant making sure the platoon delivered on those next 3 Cratulite payloads?
By any means necessary. The Eptus payload being the first of which, home to a species formerly known as the Sow. The King's obstinance was only preceded by his unwavering inability to see reason, and forced us to play our hand. For the first time, I regretted what we were about to do. I thought I could pretend, keep up appearances without resorting to violence. But in what world was that ever going to happen? We were Voromir, the most infamous of space pirates, incapable of empathy outside our own race. But I was no longer, and no amount of false pretense would ever sway my empathy for the Sow. I knew any attempts to stop my brothers were futile while we were denied free rein on the Cratulite. But with that thought, came an idea I could put into practice, one of a more irrefutable renegotiation with the Sow's foolhardy king. I realise now, the ease in which I captured him was not by fortuitous chance or pure coincidence. The Sow were oppressed by their king, so much so that when I threatened to drop him from a deadly height, they stood down without a moment's hesitation. We had secured the payload, but Furman was unhappy with me, and was convinced I'd undermined his position of authority. There was much I could have said regarding the legitimacy and moral standing of his so-called status, but I played my part expressing regret to feed his false appetite. We were 1 payload down, and despite my actions, my position had yet been compromised. I guess that gave me courage enough not to ignore the Sow when they reached out. They thanked me for interfering when I had, and seemed convinced they were still alive because of me. The Sow had long become disillusioned with their king, who had succumbed to all manner of transgressions throughout his rule. This most recent transpiry was the straw that broke the camel's back, and reason enough to have him overthrown. They wished to reward me as a token of their appreciation, and were more persuasive than I was humble. They knew not where the creature arrived, or how it came to live among them, only that its name was Mitt, and it wanted nothing other than a friend.
Oh, did you take it in?
No. Not initially, at least. somehow it found its way aboard, and the last thing I wanted to be was responsible for it. But the stupid thing had no idea of the danger it had gotten itself into. It took some doing, but I taught the creature to keep a low profile while the others were around, and by the time we came upon the second payload, it was relatively hassle-free. The Drew were cooperative, and willing to allow us to mine their cratulite on the basis we used our advanced technology to make a universal record of their doctrine. This was what us Vormal deemed an easy money situation. Agreeing to terms we had no intention of upholding. The Drew were, in the grand scheme of things, a primitive race, and lacked the intelligence to ascertain that their planet's core would eventually destabilize in the wake of the mining process, as many so often do. But I had saved one species from damnation, and had developed a taste for it. Against my better judgment, and while my brothers were absent, I scoured the prior contacts list for anyone willing to forego our troubled past and assist me. Troubled, as it seemed, was putting it lightly, and I had almost given up hope, when aid came in the form of a little Diapon girl, convinced in my attempt to extort her kind. I informed her of the situation the Drew had found themselves in, and that she needed to find an adult who would organize a rescue vessel for them. She jabbered on about the stories her elders had spoken of us, about how we Vormal were no good and could never be trusted. And yet, she said she would help me, if I could convince her I wasn't, as she so elegantly put it, a baddie. The last thing I wanted to do was play this girl's stupid games, but my choices were limited. We were fast approaching our third payload and my brothers were due to appear any minute. So I told her what she wanted to hear, that I was turning over a new leaf, making amends for past crimes, and genuinely worried for the poor Drew now that their planet was soon to destabilize. The thought crossed my mind as I spoke, that my words didn't feel entirely fabricated, and to this day, I do believe that factor attributed to my success. I had organised rescue for the Drew, then realised they had no reason to trust me, unless I delivered on our end of the bargain. This was easier said than done. To this day, I'm amazed I fooled them for as long as I did. We were upon our third payload when I came to, and my brothers had taken extreme measures to ensure our success. Measures at the time I felt were appropriate. Incolatus was running some last-minute scans to determine the cause of my dissentient behaviour, and I was in no mood to object. I thought better they'd chalk up my poor conduct to some neuron irregularity than ever discover the truth behind the matter. And besides, we would soon be subject to the restoration process. But never could he or I have anticipated the results. With every ounce of my being I pled for him to kill the connection, that if he did not, he would succumb to the same ill fate that befell me. But no amount of noise would get through to him. The process had taken hold, and I could only watch in despair as he became among the liberated. I'll never forget that look on his face. Incolatus was the one who had built the most trust with our contacts, and without the cause to guide his moral compass, he knew now the full extent of his cruelty. He was pissed, and there was nothing I could do to stop him. Incolatus had doomed us all.
Thanks for watching, guys. This one kind of ballooned into something much bigger than I could have anticipated, so I apologise for not posting sooner. I'd like to be able to say there'll be more content before our next Storytime video, but truth be told, I'm not entirely sure we'll find the time.
We'll see how we go. Next time on this segment, Jordy recalls his most horrific injury. And spoiler alert, there will be blood.